this is essentially bringing up old allegations and whispers that I have heard specifically concerning the Lord's Ranch for a very long time. Now that people are actually coming forward. So one of the things that I had always heard about the Lord's Ranch is that a lot of the troubled youth that were sent there were sent from Chicago. Now, not all, but a lot of them were from Chicago. And so when I read this story this morning, I decided to just open up my trusted Google, open up the government spying operation that is Google, and I decided to type in the Lord's Ranch, Chicago. And the number one hit that came up is this piece by CBS News, right here that you see on your screen. This piece by CBS News details where a lot of these lawsuits are coming out of. This is CBS News Chicago, and this is their in-depth report on, and they blur or they black out some of the faces because what they're saying is embarrassing. But this story, folks, is not going away, and I think these state legislators know it's not.
It's a national story now percolating right here in Chicago. Allegations brought forward in a federal lawsuit by children, now grown up, and some of them are from the Chicago area. They were sent to a residential treatment program at a place called the Lord's Ranch in Arkansas.
That's where they claim they were sexually and physically abused by staff. The facility is now shuttered, but some of those now suing told their story to CBS 2 investigator Dave Savini.
How old were you when you got sent to the ranch?
15.
This Chicago man was one of hundreds sent away to a residential treatment center and reform school called the Lord's Ranch. Were you getting in trouble when you were a kid?
Yeah, like you become a product of your environment.
He says he was sent away from his neighborhood gangs to the remote town of Warm Springs, Arkansas, to this sprawling, secluded, and spiritually based ranch. It is here where he was supposed to get rehabilitated and schooled. But he says this beautiful setting hid horrific abuse. The worst, he claims, perpetrated by a man he should have been able to trust the most, the head therapist, Emmett Presley. So the first time he started to do something inappropriate was before basketball?
Yes.
He says he was preparing for basketball practice when the abuse started in the 1990s. He was changing into his uniform when Presley suddenly showed up. Presley talked by phone with the CBS 2 investigators and says the accusations are absolutely false.
We would try to help me apply this ointment, and I would just look and be like, okay, why are you in here right now?
And that's the first time he touches you?
Yes, sir.
And yeah, he grabbed my pants and pulled it down and exposed me.
This is another Chicago man who says the same therapist sexually abused him soon after he got to the ranch in the early 90s. He was just 10. So within a month of being at the Lord's Ranch, you already...
Yeah, we took my innocence, yeah.
Again, Presley denies the abuse allegations. So you're 10 years old, you're being abused, and how long does that go on for?
Until I was 15, 16, where I can fight and really defend myself.
Both men wanted their identities protected. They are just two of dozens of men and women now coming forward claiming abuse occurred at the ranch in the 80s and 90s. Children either sent there through the juvenile justice system, their public schools, or by child welfare agencies.
We represent over 45 former residents.
Chicago attorney Martin Gould says the list of victims coming forward has grown since his firm Romanucci and Blandon filed a federal lawsuit last month.
This was sex trafficking funded by state and local governments.
The ranch owner, Ted Sewell, was convicted of unrelated federal bribery charges in 2016, and the ranch was permanently closed. President Trump later commuted his sentence.
I believe there was probably hundreds of former residents that were sexually, physically, and or emotionally abused at this facility.
DCFS and the Board of Education were actually funding children to go there.
Illinois DCFS was setting them, Chicago Board of Education, the Audi Home, Henry Horner Center, and the Lord's Ranch would send staff to Chicago to these places. They'd be handing out pamphlets.
Along with the accusations of sexual abuse, these men say some children were physically abused by security guards. They would restrain kids?
Oh, definitely. I've definitely been restrained.
What do they do to you?
Their restraint method was to lay you face down flat. They would grab your arms from behind. It helps you lose air. Definitely, like you could pass out from it, but also you can break a limb too as well.
He says as children there, they also quickly learned speaking out just caused them more problems, so many kept quiet. These men talk about being threatened and say they and others were kept at the ranch even longer than they were supposed to be. They both say they never went to police, and while Presley is named in the civil suit, he was never charged with a crime. What did that do to you?
It traumatized me, for one. Man, it hurt.
What would justice be for you?
I would say justice is definitely holding that place accountable.
When I spoke with Emmett Presley, the former ranch therapist, he said the allegations in the lawsuit are absolutely false. A lawyer for Ted Sewell, the owner of the ranch, says the Sewells strongly deny these false allegations and are looking forward to their day in court. We'll stay on it. In Chicago, Dave Savini, CBS 2 Investigators.
I mean, this is a lot more than just over who has control of the prison board now. Am I the only one? Unbelievable that this is now being uncovered. I don't know if you heard what the attorney representing these people said. He said this was sex trafficking facilitated by local and state governments, specifically citing the Chicago School Board, Chicago entities. Then he says that the Lord's Ranch would send staff up there to hand out the pamphlets of where to send the kids. Now, you have to understand that this is a facility. The Lord's Ranch was a facility that was funded by, Medicaid, right? So it's getting, with each child that comes, it's worth X amount of dollars a year. Unbelievable that this is all coming to light. And we're going to continue following this story. What do you think? Sound off in the comments. Do you think that Giles, this guy on the Board of Corrections, Arkansas Board Corrections member Giles, do you think that he needs to resign? You think that he needs to stay there? That's him right there. He's named in the lawsuit. I believe it talks about, breaking an arm or something. I want to make sure. I mean, to be clear, he's not the one that was accused of doing the sexual assault, from what I've read. Okay. It says Giles is accused of breaking a resident's arm in 2002 while administering a restraint hold. So you partially heard that. You partially heard that being said by one of those guys with his face blacked out in that CBS interview in Chicago. Face down, arms being held back, makes it very difficult to breathe, but you can also break an arm. So I'm telling you, this whole uncovering of what was going on in Randolph County is what's driving a lot of this. People know this is a much bigger story, and it's like, yeah, I mean, this guy can't. How's this guy going to do his job on the Arkansas Prison Board? How's he going to do his job? It's a giant distraction. Of course he needs to resign. I don't think that. I mean, this is, come on. Do people have no shame anymore? It just goes right down. It's like nobody's ashamed to do anything. People get caught red-handed in public office, and they think I'll just stay in office. I'll stick it out. What? It's unbelievable.